what's happened is the Yemeni economy has grown such that the remittances now, which used to be a key part. If you look at the successful development economies over the last, 30 years, the one thing that you see, and here I'm building on Danny Roderick. I highly recommend the work of Danny Roderick and Joseph Stiglitz on these development issues. That the key determinant is a sustained investment transition. That you get a long period, and the World Bank and the IMF have their figures. It's supposed to be about 25% of GDP in savings. If you get a long period of investment like that, you really get a transformation of the economy, where you get a long, not just a single period of investment, but you get a long period of sustained where people are saving and investing again. That has the capacity of transforming the economy. And in Yemen, it's going to have to happen in many different sectors. I said a diverse economy in tourism, in the port, in mines, in continuation of the oil. All of these things, and the state's going to have to play an active role in sort of enhancing and facilitating it. I said that bringing the Yemeni private sector in, that's a good indicator. But we can't depend upon the Yemeni private sector alone, in the sense that really people inside of Yemen have to feel that that their labor is safe, that they have a future, that they can build something for themselves inside of Yemen. Yemenis are very resourceful. If you look at the terraces they built over thousands of years, if you look what they did in Saudi Arabia, they've come to Detroit, they've come to California, they're all over Indonesia. I mean, Yemenis are very, very resourceful and very hardworking. The question is, can you build a set of institutions that can channel that into increasing labor productivity inside of Yemen? I think it's very important to focus on that and less on the issues of natural resources. Now, let me say just a couple of things. I want to talk a little bit about water, because people freak on the water. And I also want to talk about, differentiate between a long-term, I'm talking about sort of a medium term, okay? In the short term, there are crises. In the short term, there are a lot of unemployed people in Yemen. I'm talking about a more medium-term development that talks to the long-term, speaks to the long-term health of the Yemeni economy. I think we've got to think about that, and it's important to think about that. But there are there's some severe crises coming up right now. So, I think that one of them is getting Yemeni labor back into the Gulf. I think that is an incredibly important thing. That not only will it reduce unemployment, but it also brings some more income into Yemen. That's a political issue. That's just a flat-out political issue. The Gulf is very hesitant to it. There have been a number of conferences, and I have papers from conferences in Yemen and in the Gulf about this issue. You see an extreme Gulf reluctance to allow Yemenis back into the Gulf. They have very strong suspicions of Yemenis. Frankly, a lot of it is just, how do I say it? It's just prejudice. And they, I think, they're concerned about Yemen. They're concerned about security in Yemen. And I think this is one place that the United States and the international community can play an important role. I mean, we just signed a $6 billion, the biggest arms deal on record with Saudi Arabia. We can put some pressure. We don't. I mean, my sense is that, the sort of the Gulf dictates U.S. policy. It's really strange to me. But we can put some leverage there. And I think that, the role, this is one of the places where, leadership in the international community could play a huge role in helping Yemen out by opening those gates to those workers into Yemen. The other thing is that along the same lines, Yemen gets a lot of assistance. How does someone qualify that? Actually, the per capita assistance to Yemen is quite low by global standards, okay? But the assistance that it does get, it's often the case it's not used. And this speaks to capacity again, okay? So what I want to say, it's not just a question of throwing a whole bunch of money. Money will help. Money will help with immediate consumption needs, but let's recognize it. It's just kind of immediate consumption needs, okay? I think the kinds of assistance that are going to be more significant are going to be these broader regional ones, opening up the Gulf to Yemeni workers, getting some Gulf assistance in, because the Saudis play a huge role. They do play a huge role in Yemen. They play a huge role financially, you guys. The official figures are often not quite right. They'll dump $2 billion into the treasury, and they've done that. Just did it recently, and they've helped significantly with bringing in fuel recently with the fuel shortages and whatnot. They do play a big role, but those are short term. Okay, when we talk about assistance, there's sort of humanitarian, there's sort of relief, and sort of increasing consumption right now because there are some humanitarian crises in Yemen, largely to do with the dislocations, the refugees, and the lack of fuel and electricity. But those are kind of band-aids that if it's going to be effective, it's going to have to be either these regional things or focused on developing, long-term capacities in the Yemen. That's what we should be focusing on. Okay, water. People are freaking out about water. Water in Yemen is a renewable natural resource, okay? They have fossil water. There's fossil water in the Hadramaut. There's a huge reservoir of fossil water out in the Hadramaut that's actually being used in the Hadramaut, and it can be used in the future. But the problem is it's in the Hadramaut and it's not in the highlands where all the people are, and to pump it up there, it's too expensive. So you really can't do that. Yemen, what happened in Yemen was that with bore wells, when they brought in the pumps and the bore wells, beginning in about the mid 20th century, Yemenis were able to withdraw water at a much faster rate than they had been before. I mean, it used to be that you dug it by, and I saw this. It's amazing to watch them dig a 200-foot down well lined with rocks by hand. Get them to do it's stunning to watch that happen. And they still do that. Some people still do that. But it's the bore wells. People went in with the bore wells, and that allowed them to make much greater withdrawals. And so the FAO has this estimate, who knows, about 168%. They're consuming 168% of their annual renewal. Okay, but what it means is that once again, the water issue is a management one. 90% of the water used in Yemen is used in agriculture. Of that 90%, 40% is used in gas. So just by that, it's not like anybody's going to die of thirst, okay? I mean, there's a lot of water out there. It's just being used in agriculture. Now, it's being used very inefficiently in agriculture in the sense that in an arid environment like Yemen has a negative water balance. That means more water goes out than goes in. So there are no permanent rivers. There's no lakes. There's no permanent rivers in Yemen because any water that comes up, it evaporates. And they get those massive rains on a tropical cycle in early summer and late summer, and then it rains. It replenishes goes through the terraces, which are ecologically a very sound adaptation to Yemeni because you recycle the water goes through one terrace and it comes out the bottom onto the next terrace. So you use the recycled water that drips into the soil all the way down. It's extremely ecologically efficient. And then the water that runs off, it goes down the big washes, and they irrigate with spate irrigation, where the floods go into the fields and it fills up, and they let it go down. And so there's rain-fed, there's the terraces, there's the spate irrigation, and then there's the well irrigation. And the well irrigation, the conveyance is the issue. Yemenis, they lose a tremendous amount of water in the conveyance of the water because it's evaporating. So it's either in channels where a lot of it's going into the dirt. It needs to be in pipes. They need to change the types of agriculture they do instead of doing that flood from the wells now, not from the spade irrigation, but from the wells when they're doing floods. Like they'll do it on the gut. They'll just flood the field when they want to bring the sprout. They want to do a little bit of harvest, and that's the kind of stuff. And it can change. And they've got ideas. They know how to do it. But it requires an effective agricultural extension agency. It requires, and it's not that much money, really, but it requires education, a little bit of technology, a little bit of experimentation. The water ministry in Yemen has some fantastic ideas, but it's a question of the capacity to implementation. So once again, it's a question of management. These issues are management issues, which require state capacity, and that to me is the key thing for the Yemeni economy. Well, let me just stop there. That's good.